Hello and welcome to the Deep Flyout Podcast. I'm your host, Elliot, and today I will introduce myself as well as talk about a few players on the St. Louis Cardinals. So, as I already mentioned earlier, I am Elliot. I am a high school roller hockey player and goalie. I do a bit of both. But recently, about this last MLB season, I found myself wanting to watch a lot more MLB and St. Louis Cardinals specifically, and I ended up going to a game where I bought this jersey. Um, there's not a lot to know about me in case of this podcast, so let's just get right into what I know about baseball. So to start off, my baseball love really came from watching some Paul Goldschmidt highlights that I think a friend was playing or something. I think I was at a buddy's house and he was just playing some Paul Goldschmidt highlights, which is where is it at? You can see on there. That's the jersey I'm wearing. Paul Goldschmidt jersey. Unfortunately, though, he is no longer a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. I found that out after getting really hooked onto baseball and then really liking Paul Goldschmidt. I later found out that he would no longer be a part of the team at the end of the season. Still bought his jersey, but then, he left the team to go play for the Yanks. So he's the main reason I'm into this. He's kind of the inspiration to start this podcast. We're still gonna stay on the St. Louis Cardinals despite him being a New York Yankee now. Anyways, let's get right into talking about some up and coming players and just some players in general. So, with my very little knowledge of baseball, let me add, um, there's a few players that I know that are coming up in the system. Maybe have played a season or two here in the majors because I know that there is three levels of baseball. You got Double A, Triple A, and the majors or MLB. Obviously, people that know that was really obvious, but I'm still figuring some things out. Still figuring a lot of things out, and that's what the podcast is about. So first off, Masyn Winn. If you know St. Louis, you know him. You probably love him. Here in this last season, I think he played the whole season. But in that time, he had 85 runs, so he made it all the way back to home plate 85 times. To those folks that don't know, and me who is just figuring all this stuff out, he had 178 hits, which means he got on base. He hit base 178 times throughout the season, and he smashed 15 home runs throughout that season as well. Isn't a lot, but he's still young. He'll get better. He is a shortstop here in St. Louis. So, those that don't know, he plays little utility. I think that's not the correct word. I think a utility player is a player that can play like a lot of different positions. But he kind of he's in between like second and first or second and third, kind of helping out the infield, helping out the outfield a little bit. He smashed a good amount of home runs, I think, in his young career here. He had quite a bit of runs as well. He definitely helped St. Louis in even a losing season and not playoff season. I think he was still an upside to this last season from the little bit that I watched of the season, watching games, going to a game, all that stuff. Next up, we have Jordan Walker. Walker. Not Walker, sorry. Talk a little funny there. He only played 51 games this last season, so nowhere near a full season there, which is like 152 games, I think, 150, 152, somewhere in that range. But in that shortish amount of time there, he had 16 runs, he had 33 hits, and he managed to knock home 5 homers, which is pretty good. He, I believe, is a right fielder. I definitely know that he's on the outfield. He did play outfield to the game I went to, so I got to see him play. I like him. I think that's a bit controversial in the St. Louis Cardinals community. From what I've heard from a couple other podcasts I listen to and stuff, he's not super liked. People think that we definitely have better players that we could play instead, which is, I mean, obviously I'm assuming that's what they did, only playing him in 51 games. He probably played for different injuries and stuff along that sort. That's just an assumption. I don't know for sure. But I think he's another player that if they play him, they get him out there, he could definitely start to ramp up. Only 5 homers in 51 games. I mean play him the whole 152. He's gonna be smashing them out there for sure. More hits. I mean, definitely could get more hits there. Next up, talk about our first base situation. All right, with Paul Goldschmidt leaving, who was our starting first baseman, played a bunch of games. Not just this last season for us, but all the seasons that he's been in St. Louis, he's just been up there. He's been playing good. Looking at his stats, I don't have his exact stats wrote down on here, but he was a good player. I mean, obviously he's dwindling a little bit. That's why they wouldn't re-sign him. They wanted to move on, but it left us with Alec Burleson, who on the depth chart is on the top of the first base depth chart there. But he is a right fielder, and this will be his third year coming in for the St. Louis Cardinals. But he was a right fielder those last 2 years. And in the last season here, I think he played almost every game. He had 71 runs, 147 hits, and 21 home runs, which is fine at bat and everything. I think the main worry is moving him into the infield, because that's a lot different than catching those pop fly balls or things that squeak past the infield that are just kind of rolling towards you. I think playing first base, it's a little different there. I think that maybe this year he doesn't do as well with it. Maybe next year, or the year after this one, if he continues to play in that position consistently, maybe he can get a little bit better at it. Maybe we see him, getting some good fields. But I don't know how he's going to do in this first season. Maybe that's okay for the Cardinals right now. We kind of need to just do a retool. I think we could be back in the playoffs soon. I'm pretty sure we've had a couple seasons here that we've missed. Not 100% sure on that. Next up, got the pitcher that I was told was supposed to save us, was supposed to help us a bunch. Sonny Gray. I don't think they used him what he was originally signed to used. I don't really know. Only watching limited amounts last year. But that's the point of this podcast. We're going to talk about him. You guys can give me feedback on, how you guys think my takes were, if I got any of this information done, or wrong, sorry. You can easily just give me some feedback here. So he played 28 games. He had 13 wins and 9 losses. Pretty decent. I mean, it's a winning record for sure. Only winning 4 more games than he lost. I don't know if he was able to be that savior that I was told he was signed to be. So that's just a little bit of what I know. I didn't talk about every player that I necessarily wanted to talk about here. I wanted to keep it kind of short, sweet, simple. Just a little something to get started here. Before the season and during the spring training, I might be a little bit limited on uploads and stuff. Just due to I'm trying to figure everything out, get the wheels really rolling with this one. But I definitely want to start getting weekly uploads whenever it comes to the actual regular season. And if we make the playoffs, I haven't really figured out what I'm going to be doing over the off season. There may not be a lot of talk about. We may be doing like a monthly episode. Maybe even miss a month if nothing really interesting happens. But I'm definitely going to try to get some weekly uploads out here. Try to make sure everything runs smoothly. So thank you for tuning into this first one. If you liked it, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, leave me a comment for some feedback. I'm always open to it. You can follow me on Instagram as well. It's, the Deep Fly Out Podcast on there as well. And thank you. Subscribe to join the journey. Thank you.